My name is Michael Walls. I'm Professor of Development Politics and Economy at DPU. I am taking over from Julio as DPU Director at the start of September. So I look forward to seeing you on the 28th of September and from thenceforth. Originally, I'm from New Zealand, which is such a little place on the edge of the world that it actually dropped off that map that you saw earlier. But I can assure you it does exist. I know that because my parents are there and I talk to them quite frequently. My background's in anthropology, political science, and business. So I worked quite a long time in the private sector, as well as spending probably unhealthy amounts of time in academia. Hence that concern I've talked about before that I think gels very well with what DPU is talking about, which is that issue of combining robust theory of academia with some of the practical aspects of what it means to talk about development. I've been in London for the past 21 years. The vast bulk of that has been with DPU. Most of that has been as a tutor and a program leader with the Development Administration and Planning program. So a particularly personally warm welcome to all of you who are here for that program. Much of my work is in the Horn of Africa, has been for most of that period, or East Africa, with some long-term engagement in Sierra Leone and to a lesser degree in Nigeria. Now, I want to say a few comments about the situation we're in right now, because in a really meaningful way, there's never been a better moment or a greater urgency for you, us, to be studying and contemplating a career in development planning. The pandemic constrains teaching and much of the rest of life, but also underlines the enormous and urgent challenges that we face. Ironically, actually, many of those challenges are not new. They were there already. They're not about the pandemic. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the racism that has become such a focus through the Black Lives Matter movement. We're talking about inequality in its many forms, whether it's gender inequality or wealth, income inequality, and so on. All of those are hugely important, and they've been there for a long time. But each of them has been highlighted by the unparalleled economic restrictions that different countries have put in place to try and deal with this pandemic. Development planning is all about being a part of the effort to plot a way past the current crisis, while remembering the importance of those other key challenges. I'd like to suggest to you that combining the words development and planning emphasizes the degree to which we must not forget those underlying issues beyond the pandemic. In many ways, as huge an issue as it is now, the pandemic is not the most important thing. It will eventually pass. At what cost is a good question, but what will remain most is the legacy of how we've dealt with it. While it's important to deal with it effectively and efficiently, it's also critically important that we don't exacerbate those other social problems or environmental problems. And that will require deliberate action. What is deliberate action? It's development planning, in other words. As Julio said, DPU was established to help build capacity to achieve innovative, sustainable, and inclusive societies. And we take that mission very, very seriously, pandemic or not. Whichever DPU program you're taking, you will be actively engaged in thinking critically and practically about the different approaches and roles involved in undertaking this thing we call development. In fact, we will be actively encouraging you to build an understanding of how many different things there are that can and often are called development. It's not one thing. It's not even one thing that we agree on. How those different interpretations can completely alter what it is you're trying to do is therefore central to that issue of connecting robust theory with the practice of whatever it is we define as development. Each program has its own perspective, and it's very important to be aware of what those are. Some focus on the differing roles played by national and local governments, bilateral and multilateral agencies, civil society organizations at the local, national or international level, the private sector, the role that businesses play in development or can play. For many, one of the central issues is the role or lived reality associated with working and living in cities or in planning urban areas in socially just ways. Urban areas in themselves are central to addressing many of our most urgent development problems. The pandemic, for example, has shown how transmission of a virus such as SARS-CoV-2 is spread more rapidly in areas with higher population densities. Indeed, it's no coincidence that the critical initial transmission to humans, the zoonosis that DPU has been involved in research on, probably took place in or was associated with an urban food market. Many of the distancing rules and restrictions that we experience at the moment in different forms in different countries have run precisely counter to what makes cities great. It's true then that cities magnify the risk in the case of a virus. But in a rapidly urbanizing world, cities are also essential in that they offer the economies of scale we need if we're to address key development issues. That leaves us with a real dilemma. And any attempt to resolve that dilemma will require deliberate, planned action. To do that in a manner that improves rather than worsens the climate crisis, while also addressing social injustices, including racism and xenophobia in all its forms, while lessening inequality. That is precisely the kind of ambitious task that we set ourselves to examine, that Jordana mentioned before. It's an urgent task. It could not be more urgent. And it will require deep critical engagement for all of you with the processes, assumptions, and approaches of development planning. We don't have all the answers. What we pride ourselves on doing is asking the questions that lead us to situations where we can plan, whatever that word means, in ways that are environmentally and socially just at their heart. In many ways, 2021 will not be like other years. And some of the changes we're getting used to now will remain in place, not just in education either, but generally in our lives. But as for education, I do want to say a couple of things about what you can expect in the coming academic year at DPU, and where we'll have chance for some discussion, for some questions and answers later. We've all been working at DPU extremely hard to make sure that we're ready to teach online while restrictions are in place. Certainly through term one, which means in precise dates until 18th of December, you will be able to participate fully in all program activities online. We have systems in place to ensure that group work, lectures, tutorials, and the full range of other individual and collaborative activities take place with at least the same depth as ever. In fact, in our experience of teaching online recently, we've discovered that sometimes the depth with which we can cover topics like that, engage in them, is even greater online because of the intensity of the one-to-one relationships that form. Each MSc program at DPU is intensive. It's intensive whether it's online or offline, and that will remain just the same in the coming year. You will also very much have time to get to know your colleagues and to work with them, and you will have the usual levels of access to teaching and administrative staff. We will timetable classes so that they fall within the middle of each day, ensuring that people from the largest possible range of time zones can participate within normal waking hours. By the middle of the day, I'm talking 12 till 3. The pattern of teaching will involve a mix of asynchronous and synchronous activities. Now, if that terminology doesn't exactly make sense, then all I'm talking about is the synchronous activities are the ones where we're all in the same virtual room together for each module. The asynchronous ones might be group work, they might be individual tutorials, there'll be all the usual activities that take place around teaching. We will emphasize asynchronous work because that involving both group and interactive activities on an individual level, including reading, posting contributions on forum style pages, working in groups and so on. And we'll privilege that precisely because it's designed to accommodate differences in working conditions for each of you, as well as time zones, including possible restrictions on movement that vary periodically or by country or locality. That said, depending on the time zone you're in, you may find you need to work a little more in the evenings or the mornings than you normally would. However, the overall workload will remain the same as it has been offline. We're less certain, of course, about how travel will be affected from the new year 2021. When it's feasible to do so, we will make a transition to face-to-face teaching. And we will keep you fully updated on this. but I don't have a crystal ball and I can't tell you exactly what is going to happen when. So it's going to be a matter of remaining fully in touch. I can promise you that you will not be required to attend physical classes without ample time to make the necessary arrangements, including visas, travel, etc. And we will not require you to be physically present in London until you are able to be so safely. However, if you are able to be in London, you're very welcome to be so. And the campus at UCL will be open with libraries and so on available for people to access resources for study. We will do everything in our power to make sure that there is no penalty involved with not being in London or being in London. International field trips are a key feature of each program, so I feel I should make reference to them specifically as well. And the main point here is they will happen. Now, whether or not and to what degree they will involve international travel must depend on the restrictions in place at the time. However, they will involve interactions with the same partners, whether travel is possible or not to specific places. Of course, we don't yet know exactly what the travel situation will be. So again, I cannot tell you exactly what the arrangements will be. It's also likely that even if, in fact, I would say more than likely certain, even if restrictions have been lifted, we will almost certainly be retaining many of the online components we've used quite successfully this year because they add to the total experience. And that means they give opportunities to be researching, to developing background material online even before you get to a place, if you indeed do. Whatever the ratio of online and offline teaching and group work in the field trips or in classes general though, the core component of field-focused work, case studies, concentrating on what it means to contextualize planning, and I put that in quotation marks, with established local partners, speakers, group work, and so on, that will all go ahead. So as I say, the field trips will go ahead, they will happen in whatever form is appropriate and in whatever combination of platforms we have available to us. As I said at the start, there has never been a better or more urgent time to study development planning. We look forward to welcoming you on 28th of September for what promises to be a rewarding year, where you will be deeply immersed in developing your understanding of some of the most critical issues that face us today. So I'd just like to say a really warm welcome to this session and to say that I personally look forward to welcoming you all again on the 28th of September. That's all I've got to say, and I'll hand back to my colleagues for the discussion section. Thank you.